welcome back to the deep dive. And before we even get into the weeds today,
Which are incredibly dense, by the way.
yeah, they are dense. But I need to ask a quick favor. We're covering topics today that, the algorithm explicitly suppresses.
Oh, absolutely.
So if you get value from these deep dives, if you like exploring the ideas that the mainstream tries to bury, please hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed to the feed.
We really need your support to keep digging up this kind of hidden knowledge. Because today, we aren't just looking at a book. We are looking at, well, a weapon.
That's not an exaggeration. We're doing a full breakdown of a really explosive ebook. It's called Language War: Subversion of Logos by Woke Cultural Marxists in Satan's Power.
By Conrad Riker.
Right, and I know with a title like that, you might expect a religious tract or just a political rant.
Sure.
But what we found in the research, and again, we're just reporting what author presents here, is something much more structural.
Right, because Riker frames communication not just as a social skill, but as a literal battlefield. And his core thesis is terrifyingly simple. Language isn't just evolving naturally.
Like we didn't just drift from thou to you by accident.
Exactly. He argues that language is being deliberately sabotaged.
He calls it a battlefield report. He says the trivium, which we will definitely get into in a second, is being dismantled. And the goal, according to the book, is to destroy Western civilization, and specifically to target and dismantle masculinity.
It is a massive claim.
It's heavy.
But he brings the receipts.
Right.
He argues there's this intentional subversion of logos or reason designed to make it basically impossible for you to think clearly or argue effectively. It's about removing your tools of resistance.
Yeah, and if you want the full arsenal, and I mean the hundreds of citations, the historical deep cuts that we just can't fit into this recording, you need to go to Amazon Kindle or Google Playbooks right now and buy Language War.
Highly recommend.
Seriously, if you find yourself nodding along today, support the author, get the book. So our mission today is to trace this history of what Riker calls institutional capture.
We're going to unpack the feminization of reason.
The total erasure of fatherhood through linguistic shifts.
And this really trippy metaphysical concept he introduces called satanic inversion.
Let's start right at the foundation. Section 1, the war on the trivium. I have to admit, when I saw grammar as the first battleground, I kind of flashed back to, 10th grade English.
Diagramming sentences on a chalkboard.
Yeah, it seemed boring. But Riker says grammar is God's code for reality. Help me bridge that gap. What does he mean?
Well, to understand Riker, you really have to understand the classical view of education. The trivium isn't just a list of subjects. It is the operating system for the human mind. It's made up of grammar, logic, and rhetoric.
So, input, processing, and output.
Essentially, yes. Grammar is the input, it's how we name things. Logic is the processing, how we connect those things. And rhetoric is the output, how we persuade. Roker argues that grammar isn't arbitrary. It's not just rules some old guys made up to sound fancy. He references Dionysius Thrax from the 2nd century BCE.
Wow.
And Panini, the guy who wrote the grammar for Sanskrit like 2.5 millennia ago.
Panini is fascinating. I was actually reading in our notes that his grammar rules were so incredibly mathematical that modern computer scientists used them to help build AI parsers.
Right, and that is exactly the point. These ancient thinkers saw parts of speech nouns, verbs, pronouns as cosmic categories. They reflect the actual structure of reality. A noun is a thing that exists. A verb is an action that happens. When you have a fixed grammatical structure, you have a fixed reality. You have cause and effect. You have order.
So if I say, the boy threw the ball, that's a reality. There's an actor, the boy, an action, threw, and an object, the ball.
Exactly. And Riker's argument is that woke ideology acts like malware inside the system. If you break the grammar, you break the brain's ability to process cause and effect. You decouple language from reality entirely.
Because if you can't name the actor, you can't assign responsibility.
Yes.
And I want to point out, this isn't just philosophical musing. This was the part of the book that really made me sit up straight. He cites a 2023 study from the University of Reading regarding legal contracts. Break that down for us.
This is where the rubber meets the road. The study analyzed legal contracts that replaced specific pronouns, like he or she, with gender-neutral terms or the singular they.
Okay.
They found that these inclusive contracts were 37% more likely to result in disputes over interpretation.
37%! That is massive in the legal world. That's millions of dollars in litigation.
It's catastrophic.
Yeah.
I mean, in law, ambiguity is chaos. If you can't pin down exactly who is responsible for what because the language has been fuzzed out to be inclusive, The contract just fails.
Yeah.
Riker uses this to prove that clarity is actively being sacrificed for ideology.
Right.
We are choosing to be confused rather than risk offending someone.
He uses that term pronoun inflation, which I thought was just a brilliant analogy. It's like economic hyperinflation.
Right. If the government prints too much money, the dollar becomes worthless.
Yeah.
Riker argues that if you print too many pronouns, z, zer, bun, pup, whatever, you degrade the currency of language itself.
Because when words can mean anything, they eventually mean nothing.
Exactly. You can't transact truth anymore because the currency is debased.
And when the currency collapses, the market crashes. But here, the market is the education system. The book details a crazy case at the University of Oregon. A student was allegedly downgraded for toxic argumentation.
And you have to look at what his crime actually was. He wasn't being abusive. He wasn't shouting slurs. He was just using direct linear reasoning in a paper on Immanuel Kant.
So using logic was the toxic part.
According to Riker, yes. And this is not isolated. He points to a Stanford study finding that 73% of STEM departments, that's science, technology, engineering, math, now require inclusive language training.
Wow.
And in these trainings, phrases like rational argument and logical consistency are flagged as exclusionary.
That feels like we're entering 1984 territory. I mean, if rational argument is exclusionary, then what is the alternative? Irrational argument.
The alternative is emotional argument. And that leads us perfectly into the next section.
Right.
If you remove the father, the structure, the logic, the hard lines of the trivium, what fills the void. Riker calls it the feminization of reason and the rise of the maternal state.
Now, we need to be careful here because maternal state sounds nice. I mean, who doesn't like a mother? But Riker isn't talking about baking cookies and hugs.
No, not at all. He clarifies this isn't healthy motherhood. Healthy motherhood nurtures independence so the child can eventually leave the nest.
Right.
He calls this a feral maternal archetype. It's a pathological version of motherhood that splits the world into two distinct camps, infants and predators.
Okay, walk me through that dynamic. Who fits in which box in this system?
In this worldview, the infants are anyone the state deems marginalized or oppressed. They're viewed as having absolutely no agency, so they need total protection, coddling, and affirmation.
They can do no wrong because they're helpless.
Exactly. And the predators? The predators are the competent, the successful, and specifically men. Anyone who creates boundaries, enforces standards, or asks for accountability.
So the maternal state justifies its own existence by protecting the infants from the predators.
Precisely. It thrives on creating that threat. And Riker argues this psychology has infected the highest levels of our institutions. Look at Ofsted in the UK.
That's their massive education watchdog.
Yeah. Riker notes that they actually removed logical coherence from their essay grading rubrics.
And replaced it with what?
Emotional authenticity.
Wait, really? So I can write an essay that makes zero logical sense, but if I really feel my truth, I get an A?
That is the direct implication. It prioritizes feeling over thinking, subjectivity over objectivity.
Unbelievable.
Another example he gives, which is even more concerning, is the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control here in the U.S. In 2013, they redefined sexual violence.
I remember reading this part. They added emotional coercion.
Yes. And the book argues this creates a legal and social dynamic where female emotion equals victimization and male existence equals predation.
Wow.
If a woman feels pressured, even if no force, no threat, and no weapon was ever used, it can be categorized under this massive umbrella of violence.
It completely pathologizes negotiation. It blurs the line between a bad or awkward date and a literal crime.
Riker traces this directly back to Robin Lakoff. She wrote Language in Woman's Place way back in 1975. Lakoff argued that women's speech was naturally cooperative and polite, while men's speech was dominant and aggressive.
And Riker's critique is that the system took Lakoff's theory and decided, okay, women's speech is good and men's speech is bad.
Correct. So now schools effectively teach boys that their natural way of speaking, which tends to be confident, direct, factual, is aggressive. It's something they need to actively apologize for.
It creates what he calls the gynocentric media machine, a society where safety, and it means emotional safety, not physical safety, trumps truth every single time. If you're a guy who speaks directly, you're dangerous. You are a predator in the maternal state.
Which segues into arguably the most visceral part of the book for a lot of our listeners, the erasure of men and fatherhood. Riker argues that language changes are specifically designed to erase the male subject from the family and from society.
We see this with the terminology shifts all the time now. We've gone from father to non-birthing parent or progenitor. Progenitors sounds like something out of an alien movie. It's so sterile.
It's extremely clinical, it's cold. Riker argues this strips away the social and spiritual role of the father.
Yeah.
If you are just a progenitor, your role is reduced to a biological mechanism, a sperm donor.
Yeah.
You aren't a protector, you aren't a leader, you aren't a teacher, you're just a spare part.
And the book cites a study from Language and Communication in 2023 regarding textbooks. This one really highlights the subtle programming happening in schools.
It's not even that subtle when you look at the data. The study analyzed feminist-leaning history and sociology textbooks. They found a totally consistent pattern. Male actions were described in the passive voice. Mistakes were made, harm was done, wars were fought.
The passive voice? Is that the grammar of guilt Riker talks about?
In a way, yeah. It makes the male actor either invisible or just this vague, faceless force of nature.
Yeah.
But when they described female actions, active voice, heroic voice, she advocated, they led, she fought back.
So men are either invisible accidents or faceless villains, and women are the protagonists of history. That explains so much about current media.
Exactly. And then you have the total weaponization of the term toxic masculinity.
Right.
Riker points out, and this is a really important historical note, that this term didn't start as an insult.
Right.
It actually originated in the mythopoetic men's movement in the 80s and 90s.
Oh, the Iron John guys. The drum circles in the woods, guys trying to figure out what it meant to be a man.
Yeah, that crowd. They used the term to critique specific self-destructive behaviors, like bottling up emotions or senseless violence. But Riker argues the term was completely hijacked. Now, it's used to pathologize all male traits.
Ambition,
Toxic.
stoicism.
Toxic. Competitiveness.
Yeah.
Toxic. And the consequences aren't just semantic. We aren't just talking about hurt feelings here. Riker drops some extremely heavy statistics.
He does. He links this linguistic dismantling of men directly to the suicide crisis. Male suicide rates are up 58% since 2000. 58%. That is an epidemic by any definition, but nobody talks about it because, again, men are cast as the predators.
He also talks about the ghost towns in places like Sweden and the Netherlands. What did he mean by that?
He's describing a social phenomenon in these highly feminist-leaning countries. He describes ghost towns not as literal empty buildings, but as public spaces completely devoid of young men. These men have gone gulp.
Like Alice Shrugged, they just opted out. They've disengaged entirely. They don't date, they don't marry, they don't strive for high-power careers. They've retreated into video games, pornography, and isolation because the social contract has been broken.
Right.
They feel that if they participate, they'll be labeled predators or toxic.
Mm-hmm.
So the only winning move is not to play.
Riker links this explicitly to abortion as well. This was a pretty controversial take in the book, but walk us through his logic because it does fit that social contract theme.
He argues that abortion rights, specifically the way they are framed as the sole domain of the mother, destroy the implicit contract between men and society. He notes that 1 in 8 pregnancies globally end in abortion.
Okay.
His point is this: if man has absolutely no say in the life of his child, if fatherhood is revocable by the mother alone, then men's role in the family is purely contingent. It's not foundational.
It makes fathers guests in their own families, and guests don't invest the same way owners do.
Exactly. It pushes men to withdraw. Why build a house if someone else holds the deed?
Man. Okay, we need to go deeper. We've covered the grammar, the psychology, the sociology. But section 4 is where Riker goes metaphysical. Satanic inversion. Now, is he calling these people literal devil worshippers?
Not necessarily in the way you might picture it. He's using satanic as a metaphysical description of a structure. Inversion is a key word here.
All right.
It's the idea of flipping virtues completely upside down. It's not just denying the good, it's calling the good evil and the evil good.
Give us the practical application. How does this actually look in the real world?
Riker says good becomes guilt, truth becomes trauma, beauty becomes brokenness. In this inverted worldview, being competent, healthy, and successful makes you privileged and therefore guilty.
Right.
Being logical and factual makes you traumatic to others who live entirely in their feelings.
So the higher you climb, the more sinful you are. And the more you suffer, the more saintly you are.
Precisely. It's the cult of victimhood. The hierarchy is inverted. Status isn't based on what you achieve anymore. It's based on your intersectional score of suffering.
And this leads directly to the death of science. Because if truth is trauma, then objective data is actually an assault.
Lived experience replaces data. Riker cites the National Institutes of Health, the NIH, defunding a study on Holland's RIASAC model.
Raya-Seek, that's the vocational model, right?
Yes, it's a very well-established psychological model showing that, generally speaking, men are more interested in things like engineering, mechanics, and women are more interested in people like nursing or teaching.
Which seems pretty obvious to anyone who has ever met a human being.
But the results offended feminist groups because it suggested a biological basis for career choices rather than just patriarchal oppression. So the study was defunded.
Yeah.
The data was inconvenient to the narrative, so the data had to die.
He also mentions the suppression of data regarding gender dysphoria.
Right. He highlights the famous Dutch study that showed the vast majority of children with gender dysphoria grow out of it by adulthood. Riker mentions a pediatric endocrinologist in California who was actually fired for citing that peer-reviewed research.
That is the inversion right there. Citing science is a fireable offense if it contradicts the dogma.
It compels people to participate in what Riker calls the grammar of guilt.
I love that phrase, grammar of guilt. It sounds like those pronoun circles at corporate retreats.
That's exactly what he classifies them as. Riker views those circles as linguistic rituals of submission. By forcing you to state your pronouns when it's visually obvious what you are, they are forcing you to signal submission to their ideology. It's a loyalty test. If you refuse, you're a heretic. If you comply, you've accepted their frame.
Man, we have painted a incredibly bleak picture here. The trivium is broken, reason is feminized, men are erased, and reality is completely upside down. If we ended it here, I'd be pretty depressed. But Section 5 is about reclaiming logos. What is the way out?
Riker doesn't leave us in the pit. The solution is to reject the inversion. He calls it a call to arms for the mind. And the first step is surprisingly simple. Reject the grammar of guilt.
So just stop playing the game.
Do not use language that forces you to lie.
Yeah.
Do not use language that accepts premises you don't actually believe in. Speak with precision.
It reminds me of Solzhenitsyn. Live not by lies.
Exactly. Riker's advice is this. When someone calls you toxic or privileged, understand that they're using a control word. It's a spell. It's designed to silence you, not to accurately describe you.
Right.
You have to recognize the tactic and just refuse to be silenced by it.
It really is a red pill moment for the listener. The book is telling men, you aren't crazy. You're being gaslit. The confusion you feel, the sense that the world has gone totally mad. That's because a system has been deliberately designed to dismantle your ability to think.
And once you see the machinery, as Riker says, you stop fearing it. You realize that this maternal state is based on emotion, manipulation, and social shame, not reality. And reality always wins in the end.
Yeah.
Logos, truth, order, structure is durable. The feral chaos Riker describes.
Yeah.
It ultimately consumes itself. It can't build anything. It can only subvert what others have already built.
That is a deeply powerful message. It's not just about grammar. It's about retaining your sanity in an insane world. Look, we have covered a lot today, but we have barely scratched the surface of language war. The historical analysis alone is worth the price of admission.
It gives you the vocabulary you need to actually fight back.
Right.
If you value truth over feelings, you need this manual.
So here's the plan for you guys listening. Go to conradriker.substack.com. Follow the author. He's putting out updates and analysis that you simply won't find in the mainstream media.
Definitely.
And again, go to Amazon Kindle or Google Play Books and buy Language War. Do it today. Arm your sack with the trivium.
And please don't forget to like this deep dive and subscribe to the feed. We have more of these coming that explore the hidden corners of knowledge, and you really don't want to miss them.
We're going to leave you with one final thought from Conrad Riker. It's something to mull over as you go about your week, especially the next time you're in a meeting and someone starts using that grammar of guilt. He writes, "The left doesn't want to govern, they want to possess. But order remains. Truth remains. And so do you."
It's a great quote.
It is, and I'd add to that, think about your own internal monologue this week. What words are you no longer allowed to use in your own head? Reclaim those first.
Stay sharp out there.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.